In a quiet, working-class town in California, where the neon lights dimmed against dusty sidewalks, and every resident fought quietly for a living, two lonely souls found each other amid the triviality of ordinary life. Jake, a 26-year-old blue-collar worker, had grown up orphaned, with no family, no fortune, and nothing but a pair of hard-working hands and a sincere heart. He spent his days on construction sites, covered in dust and sweat, and his nights wandering the quiet streets, longing for a warmth he had never truly known. That warmth finally found him in a small roadside coffee shop in the form of Lila. At 24, Lila was gentle, quiet, and endlessly bright, working long part-time hours behind the coffee counter to make ends meet. She noticed Jake the first night he walked in, tired, quiet, and always ordering the same black coffee after his shift. Their conversation started small, soft, and trivial, built over countless dusk hours and steaming cups of coffee. Slowly, the casual greetings turned into quiet companionship. They fell in love simply and deeply, the way two ordinary people love each other in a busy, indifferent city. After Jake's exhausting construction shifts, Lila would wait for him, walking home beside him through the empty night streets, sharing cheap takeout under the dim streetlights. She would gently bandage the scrapes and calluses on his hands from heavy labor, and he would save every spare dollar to buy her small, silly gifts, clinging fiercely to the simple happiness they had built together in their tiny rented apartment. On a rooftop overlooking the faint glow of the city's distant neon lights, Jake poured out his whole heart to her. He had no house, no fancy career, no wealth to offer, only his unwavering devotion. "I don't have much," he told her softly, his eyes serious and earnest, "but I'll work every single day to give you a good life. All I want is to spend every ordinary day with you for the rest of my life." Lila leaned her head on his shoulder, her eyes glistening with happy tears, and whispered that she wanted nothing more than the same ordinary days with him. In that moment, they both believed their quiet, gentle love would last forever. No one knew that cruel fate was already creeping in, hidden beneath their peaceful days. Lila began to suffer from unexplained, severe physical pain. She would double over in agony late at night when Jake was asleep, pressing her hands tightly to her chest to muffle her gasps, never letting him notice her suffering. Terrified of losing the love and the life she had finally gained, she hid every symptom, every wave of weakness, and carried all her pain alone. The devastating diagnosis came on a cold, rainy morning. After a series of lonely hospital tests, Lila held the terminal cancer report in her trembling hands, the words "advanced stage" burning into her vision. Tears spilled down her cheeks and blurred the ink on the paper as she stood alone in the empty hospital corridor, silent sobs shaking her body. She knew her time was running out, and she made the cruelest, most selfless decision of her life. She refused to let Jake watch her die, refused to let him be trapped in endless grief and pain after she was gone. She would rather he hate her a little, so he could move on easier in the future. Without a word of explanation, Lila packed her bags and left California overnight, returning to her hometown with her mother. She cut off all gentle interactions with Jake and wove a cold, ruthless lie to push him away. She sent him a message, claiming her parents would never approve of their marriage, unless Jake paid an $80,000 dowry. No $80,000. No marriage, only a clean breakup. Jake's world shattered the moment he read the message. He was poor, living paycheck to paycheck, and $80,000 was an astronomical sum he could never afford overnight. But his love for Lila was far stronger than his despair. Refusing to lose the only light in his life, he made up his mind to gather the money, no matter how hard he had to fight. For the next 3 months, Jake pushed his body to its absolute limit, taking on 3 grueling jobs every single day. He worked on till dusk on construction sites, took late-night warehouse shifting jobs, and delivered food through the midnight hours, barely allowing himself time to eat or sleep. His hands grew rougher, his body constantly exhausted, but every time he felt like giving up, he thought of Lila, of their rooftop promises, and kept pushing forward relentlessly. After 3 hellish months of non-stop labor, Jake finally saved up $50,000, every cent earned through blood, sweat, and endless toil. The remaining $30,000 he had no choice but to borrow from every relative and friend he could reach, swallowing his pride and begging for help. When the last dollar was in his account, his eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. He immediately typed a message to Lila, his hands shaking with excitement. "I've got all the money, we can get married now. I can finally marry you." He waited eagerly for her reply, dreaming of their future life together, unaware that tragedy was waiting for him on the other side of the screen. The message that popped up minutes later was not from Lila, but from her mother. Through trembling words, Lila's mother told him the entire truth: the terminal cancer diagnosis, Lila's desperate decision to leave and lie about the dowry, her fear of breaking his heart, and her deteriorating condition in the hospital. She explained that Lila had been lying in a hospital bed, fighting for every breath, all while Jake was killing himself working to marry her. The $80,000 dowry was never a family demand. It was just a sad, selfless lie made up by a girl who was dying and didn't know how to say goodbye. Jake's world completely collapsed in an instant. All his exhaustion, his joy, his future hopes crumbled into endless despair. He didn't hesitate for a second, rushing madly to Lila's hospital, his heart screaming in agony, tears streaming uncontrollably down his face. When he stumbled into the sterile hospital ward, Lila was lying weakly on the bed, her body frail and pale, her consciousness fading fast. Yet as soon as she sensed his presence beside her, her dying spirit clung to life. She forced her heavy eyes open, slowly turning her head to look at the man she loved more than life itself. Jake knelt beside the bed, tightly holding her cold, thin hand, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. His eyes were flooded with tears, filled with helplessness, pain, and endless regret. Lila looked at him, a soft, bitter smile curving her pale lips. Tears of unwillingness, reluctance, and deep love slipped from the corners of her eyes. She stared at him fixedly, as if wanting to engrave his face in her soul forever, before her eyes slowly lost their light, and she closed them gently, forever. After Lila passed away, her mother handed Jake a voice memo Lila had recorded in her clearest, most conscious moments, a final message reserved only for him. Her voice was soft, weak, and soaked with sorrow and endless reluctance, every word trembling with unspoken love. "I love you, Jake. Please, please forget me slowly. I don't want to leave you. I'm so reluctant to let go of everything we had. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I couldn't keep our promise. I love you, always." The quiet voice echoed in Jake's ears endlessly, torturing his heart every second. He had worked himself to the bone for a future that never got to happen, all for a love that ended in the cruelest goodbye. Days later, Jake attended Lila's funeral alone. The wind was cold and silent over the cemetery. In front of her cold tombstone, he placed a bouquet of pure white roses, her favorite flower, and a simple silver ring, the proposal ring he had secretly prepared for her, the ring he had dreamed of slipping on her finger on their wedding day. He stood there for a long time, staring at her name carved on the stone, silent and heartbroken. He would keep his promise, in the only way he could. He would forget her slowly, gently, just as she had asked, and he would carry their short, warm, heartbreaking love with him for the rest of his life.